Mr. Campbell. Thank you for joining me today to talk about music and the effect it's had on your life.
It's absolutely my pleasure, John.
So, I want to start off with most people tend to have a memory, a very strong memory that they associate with a song. So they'll hear a song on the radio and it'll immediately bring them back to a different time and place. Do you have a song that brings you back to a different era of your life?
It happens that years ago I was in the Army and I was in Paris for the first time alone, and I went to a theater and heard a wonderful orchestra play the New World Symphony by Dvorak. And I was a young American alone in Paris, and that's, of course, all about America. And I get very teary, and every time I hear it, I think of that day.
Wow. Did the other people in the army with you? Did they share your love of that music?
I was lucky that I was with some very bright people, some of whom were Fulbrights, three of whom were Phi Beta Kappas in my room.
Wow.
And they were much more liberal arts than I was. I went to the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania, and I had very little liberal arts background, but my liberal arts education happened when I was in Verdun, France.
So then, what made you appreciate the classical music? Was that something that was first instilled in you by your parents?
Not really, but in those days there was a radio station called WFLN, which played classical music and jazz. It's now a different call letter, WRTI, but I got interested because classical music is beautiful, and so I would have that on the radio, especially when I was doing homework. And so I got educated to it.
Is that love of classical music something that you shared with your children as well?
I tried to. I don't know how much success I had, but none of them go to concerts, as far as I know.
So, do you know what kind of music they listen to?
I think they're more interested in contemporary popular music.
Okay, so what's your opinion on that kind of music? Do you like newer music and rock and that kind of?
Honestly, not. I prefer the music of my generation, that came from Broadway shows and what have you, which are really standard, and even the really good jazz programs concentrate on those, the Jerome Kern, Richard Rodgers kind of things.
So you mentioned Broadway shows. What shows did you enjoy watching or listening to?
Oh, one of my favorites was Kismet, and of course that music came from Borodin's wonderful Siberian music.
So, are there songs in that vein that are similar that you listen to with a spouse as well? Did you share that same interest with them?
Yes, both of my wives loved classical music, and my second wife, Judy, and I used to go to the Philadelphia Orchestra frequently.
Are there any particular concerts you saw there that stand out in your memory?
Nothing that I can think of that was that different.
So, I guess my last question then would be, what is your favorite album of classical music that you remember listening to that you'd recommend to somebody else if they were just getting into that genre?
I would say that the violin concertos of Tchaikovsky and Mendelssohn would be a perfect first start in classical music.
Okay.
I also love Benny Goodman's 1938 Carnegie Hall concert. I could listen to that every day.
It's a very good album.
Oh, for sure.
Well, thank you very, very much for taking the time to talk with me today.
It was my pleasure, John.